Could your kids love video games like Fortnite? Actually, could it be hurting their health? Doctors in Boston say they're seeing children develop problems typically seen in adults because of gaming. Hundreds of millions of kids play Fortnite. Its creator, Epic Games, says 200 million players are registered. Here's how it works. Fortnite is free to download, and if you don't get eliminated, you can keep playing again and again and again. You get the point. Well, that makes it easy for kids to play for long stretches of time. Doctors say they're seeing more kids with carpal tunnel, sedentary obesity just from sitting there, and hypertension, as well as sleep issues here. It's hard to think about kids dealing with these types of weaknesses and coping with all of this. Now, joining us from LA is Dr. Corey Cross, a pediatrician from the Children's Hospital in LA. Good morning. Dr. Cross, you wrote the AAP screen time policy. How surprising are you that kids are, or are you even, that kids are obsessed with video games?
Well, I mean, kids like to play, obviously, and they're going to do what you let them. And so just like you have to think about these games have been developed by somebody who wants them to keep playing. Just like gambling and you go to a casino, they want you to sit there. The developers want you to keep playing. So they have a strategy. So as a parent, if you don't want your kid playing all the time, you need to have a strategy as well. And there's lots of things that parents can do to help limit the time that their kids are using screens or using video games. And that's something that we as pediatricians can help them do if they don't feel that they can do it themselves.
And as a parent, how should I was reading that, and some of these things that kids are coping with, and they're seeing more and more with kids. What are some ideas as a parent you can do to kind of pry them away from that and just get them out and moving and healthier?
Right. It's so important for kids to have balance. So I'm not against all video games, but you need to put it in perspective. Kids need to be sleeping for a certain number of hours a day, depending on your child. That could be like 8 to 11, depending on how old they are. On top of that, they need to be outside, they need to be playing, they need to be getting an hour's worth of physical activity. You don't want to be using screens during your meal times or the hour before bed. So if kids are really doing everything else that they need to be kids, there shouldn't be 8 hours a day to play Fortnite. So parents need to really set some limits. And if you set limits early, before they're really into a video game or into something in particular, and you always have those limits, you start that as like when they're 5 or 6 years old, when you're introducing these video games on top of that, you're putting it into a structure that your family has that works for you. So I really say that parents need to start early before it's a problem, and then once it is a problem, they need to step back and say, okay, where do we need to enforce some limits? Do we need to take a hard break, just like you were talking about in the segment leading up to this? Do we need to have an unplug day where we just sort of unplug, get back to basics, and then re-implement this in a way that works for our family?
And for the first time, the World Health Organization is calling this a mental health condition. Do you agree? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that, the World Health Organization has identified it as gaming disorder. I think part of that is so that they can get funding and research for doing it. But I do think that it really just brings awareness to the fact that this is something that people are struggling with. This is really a very new thing. We didn't even have iPads 10 years ago. So we really have to think about how this is being incorporated into our daily lives. And so some parents really do struggle, and their pediatricians are there. We have resources for this. They can make family media use plans. The American Academy of Pediatrics has a website, Healthy Children, and we have a family media use plan that parents can go on and do so that they can figure out how to set limits if they're having problems.
All right, Dr. Corey Cross, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.